Good morning, students. Welcome to Indigenous Peoples Day. And today for our read aloud, I am going to read you Raven, A Trickster Tale from the Pacific Northwest. This is a local Native American legend. And before I get started, I want to make a land acknowledgement on this special day. And I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. Okay, and I want to give you a little bit of an introduction about Indigenous Peoples Day. And we are one of about 100 cities in the United States that have made the second Monday in October Indigenous Peoples Day. And it's a day of celebration for Native American tribes and people who live in Seattle. And it's a day of gathering together and sharing. And this year, of course, it'll be virtual, but people are still doing it. There's still a big celebration on this day in this city. And I also want you to know that our city itself, Seattle, is named after a Native American chief. He was the chief of the Duwamish people, whose ancestral land the metropolitan area of Seattle it now encompasses. And he was also the chief of the Squamish. And that land, that ancestral land, is on the Kitsap Peninsula, which is across the water from Seattle. So if you take the ferries over to Bainbridge and Bremerton in that area, that is was originally in Squamish land. And that was where Chief Seattle, I believe, went to in his winter home. I think that was it. And he is actually from that tribe. Okay, so let's get started with A Trickster's Tale from the Pacific Northwest. And today's lesson and this week's lesson is a new strategy that I'm teaching you, and I'm teaching you about asking questions as you read. And asking questions is important when you read because it helps you better understand what you are reading. Okay, so here's your I can statement. I can ask questions as I read to help me better understand the text. Now remember, the text is the thing that you're reading. It could be a book, it could be an article, it could be just a snippet, it could be directions. Text is just a general term used for what you are reading. Okay, right, here we go. Raven, A Trickster Tale from the Pacific Northwest by Gerald McDermott. Right, and I'm going to model how we ask questions when we're reading. Raven. Raven came. All the world was in darkness. The sky above was in darkness. The waters below were in darkness. Men and women lived in the dark and the cold. Raven was sad for them. He said, I will search for light. Okay, and now I'm going to ask myself a question here. And I'm going to ask, why was there no light? What was happening that it was dark? And sometimes you find the answers to your questions as you read, and other times you don't. You have to search them somewhere else. Raven flew across valleys and across mountains. He flew along rivers and over lakes. There was darkness all around. Then he saw a bit of light far away. He flew and came closer to the light. The light was at the edge of the water. I wonder how tall those mountains are. That's another question. Okay, I want you to try and ask a question. Okay, do you have a question about Raven? You can ask it right now. The light came from the house of the Sky Chief, and it was shining. Raven perched high in a pine tree on the shore. Raven watched. What's he watching for? saw a beautiful young girl emerge from the shining house and go to the edge of the water. She was the Sky Chief's daughter. She knelt and drank some water from a woven basket. Raven changed himself into a pine needle. He flew down from the tree and floated on the water. Ask a question here. Did you ask, why did he change himself into a pine needle? That's what I asked. When the girl drank again, she swallowed the pine needle. What's Raven doing? After a time, the girl gave birth to a child. The child was small and dark with shiny black hair and tiny black eyes. Who do you think the child was? It was Raven. Raven had been reborn as a boy child. Who's this? Who do we think this is? The Sky Chief was delighted. Did you say Sky Chief? With his daughter's child, he called him grandson. Let's see if we can get a bigger picture. He played with the boy and carved toys for him. He invited the elders to come and see the curious, wonderful child. How many elders are coming? How many do you think? Make a prediction. Ooh, there's a lot of them. More than 10. The elders gathered in the shining house with the Sky Chief and his daughter. They watched Ravenchild crawl around on the floor of the lodge. He pretended to be playing. All the time, he was trying to find where the light was hidden. What's Raven gonna do? He saw a box in the corner of the lodge. What do you think's inside the box? The box was large. It was carved and painted with many colors. The box was bright. It glowed. Raven said, "Ga, ga." "What do you want?" asked his mother. Ravenchild said, "Ga, ga." He began to cry. "What does the child want?" asked the elders. Ravenchild said, "Ga, ga." He cried and cried. "My grandchild wants the box," said the Sky Chief. The young woman placed the box in front of the Ravenchild, but he continued to cry. She took the lid off the box. Inside was a smaller box. She took the lid off that box. Inside was a smaller box. His mother took the lid off that box. What do you think came out? And light poured out of it. Light flooded the room. Inside the box was a shining ball, blazing with light. What do you think the ball was? It was the sun. "Give him the ball," said the Sky Chief. His mother gave Ravenchild the ball. Ravenchild stopped crying. He began to play with it. He rolled it around the floor of the lodge. "Ga, ga." Then he changed into a bird. "Ha, ha." He became Raven once again. "Ka, ka." Just like the bird. Sky Chief and his daughter and the elders looked on in amazement. Raven plucked up the ball of light in his beak, flew through the smoke hole of the lodge, and disappeared into the dark sky. Raven flew over the valleys and the mountains. He flew along the rivers and across the lakes. Raven threw the sun high in the sky, and it stayed there. This is how Raven stole the sun and gave it to all the people. And why do the people always feed Raven? To thank him for bringing them light. Okay, this is a Native American legend, and it is a story of how they got light, the sun in the sky. Okay, and this is Raven, a trickster tale from the Pacific Northwest. All right.